Boom. How we all doing, people? Part two. Part two. Don't know what happened yesterday. There was a bit of a blip with the Wi-Fi, and then it kind of went bad. So that stream yesterday didn't work out quite as I planned. But I guess things happen for a reason. So I said I'd do it today in this evening. So we get a nice little start to a week. We get a nice little start to the Monday. So we get a few people locked in. We get a few people in the building. It was just a shame what happened with the one last night. I mean, I swear to God, like the Wi-Fi picks the worst time to go belly up. And for some reason, when it went, the whole stream just kind of went all over the place. I was like, oh, this is just not meant to be. So we do it tonight instead. And actually, it's a good thing we're doing it tonight as well, because we're not doing a long live. We're going to do about 45, 50 minutes. Now, I'm not doing a full show with somebody, but I did ask a favor. I asked the guest on for the last, say, 15 minutes, and he very kindly agreed. Not going to spoil who the guest is, but I think you probably know. It's someone that I've had on here before, without spoiling it. But we will go back to where we started yesterday. I also want to talk a bit about Joe Parker this week. I should have my prediction video was already uploaded. I'm just waiting on getting the thumbnail ready. Once it's ready, I will upload it. It's done. So that's going to go live. I don't know if I'll get it up this evening. More than likely, I'll probably upload it in the morning. Well, unlist it in the morning. So we have Joe Parker versus Joe Joyce to look forward to as well. But the thing I've been hearing from a lot of people is Canelo Alvarez. Is he on the decline? That seems to be something that a lot of people have been asking. And a lot of people have been saying that they feel that right now, that Alvarez is showing signs that he's on the decline. Like that Triple G fight was, for them, people were saying that was kind of reason enough for them to suspect that, yeah, look, on the decline, he's on his way out. I don't necessarily know if I'd say he's on the decline necessarily. Probably he's 32 now. He'll be 33 next year. So is he at his athletic peak? Probably not. But I reckon it's more to do with the fact that he's just been training at an elite level for so long that the body is probably just starting to show signs of fatigue. And you know what I found very interesting? The best I ever seen Canelo was in the Triple G rematch. That's probably the best I ever seen him. And that was after he had a year of inactivity, where I'd imagine he was taking a good few rests in between. So maybe Canelo was someone who just needs a good, long, hard rest. Simple as that. Nothing else. Just a good, long, hard rest. And that's the end of that. So I think that's what his body needs. But at the end of the day, like, he's putting on and packing on a lot of muscle in between fights. I just don't think he needs to do that. I think he needs to just keep it natural. He's probably a natural super middleweight. And just carry what he needs up to light heavy, and that should suffice. I think maybe the fact that we see him putting on a bit of muscle, a good bit of muscle in between fights, and going into the ring with extra muscle on him, that's not going to help your stamina if you're struggling with it. Yeah, big up to Emerald 90, Ali Drew, even got the stars in the eyes this time, pet. Not a bother. Even to Ben, as always. Big up to Jake every time. Even the G-Man. Why is everyone else thinking Wilder's all of a sudden going to take on everybody? 13 years now in 45. He's fought two top 15 opponents. The other aren't top 15. He ruined Undisputed. I guess people feel maybe now that he's lost a couple of times, that there's no reason to protect him. And maybe they're just looking to just get him cashed out in a big fight against someone like that. Like, maybe they're thinking, okay, look, he's already lost twice. He's 36, 37 now. No real point sticking around, beating the dead horse and protecting him. So let's just see what big fight we can get and then settle off into the sunset. I think that's probably more than likely what it is. Remember, people thought Fury was in the decline after Wilder 3 and he knocked out Dillian Whyte and looked sharp doing it. Yeah, no. I give you that one. I thought Fury was starting to show signs of the decline. For me, one of the big things I took away from that Wilder fight, and it was one of the reasons why I thought maybe Fury would be on the decline, is when he got dropped the second time. He wasn't so much hurt, but when you look at that picture of him on the canvas, where he's just looking up at the referee, he has the look of someone who's contemplating, do I want to get up? And that's kind of how it looked to me. So when I seen that, I was thinking, Is he does he want this anymore? I know he got up, but in my head I was thinking, if that even crossed your mind, do you want it? Big up to the runner. What's up, G-Man? Bless up. Thank you, mate. Thank you so much, mate. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Big up the Fight Sport Talk. New YouTube channel, lads. There you go. Give him a look. Canelo seems to struggle. His hands is why he coasts. Tends to struggle his hands. His hand? That's why he seems to coast. Yeah, he's had injuries with his hands and arms before. Though a lot of fighters fight through broken hands. Yeah, he's had injuries with them before. That's why he wore winning gloves in the Triple G fight. Canelo won nearly every round. Don't think you can say he's on the slide just yet. Now, I wouldn't say he's on the slide per se. I think that it's just fatigue. Some people are speculating that he's on the slide. No, I don't think he is. I reckon it's just a bit of fatigue. Just the body is tired, bit run down, bit fatigued, needs a break, and that will sort itself out, I believe, anyway. GGG looked 40 in there. He's way past it now. Canelo starting to slow in the late rounds. In a slow-paced fight, Bivol was able to push the fight in pace. He likes Canelo struggled. Yeah, I do. I think that that's his biggest issue. And I'm not saying that that's the reason why he lost to Bivol. The fact that he's starting to, maybe just body is starting to get fatigued and stuff like that. Now, I think he lost to Bivol because it just came up against a style that was just bad for him. I think that's the biggest issue with Alvarez with regards to that. But I do think that if they focus more so on the stamina, and some people respect, because Canelo has had issues with his knee in the past, I believe, and that could affect him with doing the road work, which some people don't like road work. They prefer doing sprints, but I personally feel that road work is the best for improving stamina. It's a tried and tested, it's just the best. He fought 20 world champions. Some fighters like Crawford haven't even fought 4 champions. It's a great point. I mean, think of all the champions he's fought. If Joyce wins decisively, do you think Fury might be interested in fighting him? Possibly. I mean, Parker wins, he's not going to fight Parker, because Parker even said he won't fight Fury, which I don't really like hearing that. To me, I don't like hearing that at all. You should be trying to chase the champions regardless who they are. Unless he's your brother, I can understand that. But if he's just a mate, no. I wonder, because that's an in-house fight. Frank Warren would love to get it done. BT Sport would love to get it done. Be a decent enough size fight, but I still think that AJ is what they're looking for. All those protein shakes have slowed down Canelo. The protein shakes, man, every time. Getting closer to 10K. Slowing down a wee bit, but that's my own fault. I didn't put the effort in the last few. Well, last week I did, and it showed, but prior to that I didn't. So we should hit it hopefully by the end of the year. Hopefully. Now, today, I actually hit 1,000 subs on the Crime channel. So over 2 channels, I have 10,000 subs, which is something. I'll take that. So the True Crime video I did today is doing really well, actually. I think I started today with 975. Now I have 1,000, I think, in 10. So, 30-odd subs in a day. It's not too bad. Not too bad. Do you think there's any chance Wilder? No, I don't think he would, mate, to be honest with you. I couldn't envision it, personally. I couldn't see that happening. I asked yesterday, just before the stream went down, if Joyce wins against Parker, who do you expect him to fight next? It's a good question, mate. It's a very good question. If Joyce wins, he'd be mandatory for Usyk. But obviously, we're looking at Usyk Fury next year. So who would he fight? I suspect with Joe Joyce, Joe Joyce would need to get a move on. But I suspect they'll look to just wait and see what happens with regards who the winner is between Usyk versus Fury. And they maybe get Joe Joyce a run out with someone, probably like a Hellenius or someone like that. That they probably wouldn't take too big a risk with Joe Joyce if he wins. So I wouldn't imagine he's going to be up at that level, to be honest with you. Big up all. Hope you're all well, G. I'm good, man. Looking forward to Joyce Parker this weekend. Picking Joyce on points. Parker is a frustratingly good loser. Yeah, he is. And Parker is someone who just, it's frustrating. He's a frustrating fighter to watch, because Parker is a fighter I believe has a tremendous amount of talent. He's got talent to burn, but he just lacks that instinct, that grit, just to take him to the next level. You think GGG will defend his belts at middleweight and then retire? Maybe he'll have one last fight at middleweight, defend them titles, and then bow out. But I honestly, like, I wouldn't trust Triple G against even a contender at this stage. Mate, do you get inside information from Ade or your other connections on upcoming fights? The long and the short of it, yes. I haven't really got much from Ade, to be honest with you, because I only talk to him now and again because he's so busy. He doesn't really have the time to be having like the conversations like we used to where we'd be on the phone for an hour. He doesn't really have that time anymore. I understand that. In terms of other connections, yeah, I would hear this, that, and the other. Some of it is hearsay. Some of it is legit. It's happening. Like, hence the reason why I'm still convinced Dylan White versus Daniel Dubois is going to happen, because I've heard from insiders that is picked. I also prior to Eubank-Benn being announced, I heard from insiders there who were close to Sauerland who said, no, it's done. Like, it's done. And this was before they were kind of saying, oh no, it's not. Liam Smith going to Sky. I was hearing then it was done. So you do hear a lot. I'm not going to lie, you do hear a lot when you do these videos. People reach out to you and they, you get them from sources that they trust, if you know what I mean. You're not hearing it from Mick down the road saying, Tyson Fury's not going to fight Joshua, he's going to fight Frank Sanchez instead. But no one, that sort of way. You don't tend to get that. When you do get the kind of rumors and the hearsay, it either tends to be, this is definitely happening and we know it's happening, or this is close to happening. And they're normally from pretty good sources, if you know what I mean. I've even heard, as I said, I can't talk about this, but in the past I've heard about fighters, and it's been kind of around boxing circles, a known kind of secret in the boxing kind of fraternity, that a certain fighter failed the drugs test a couple of years ago and was never outed for it. He served the ban, but was never outed for it. So yeah, that was known. And obviously we still can't really talk about that now. Horrific fight. Was Golovkin's right hand injured? No, I believe it was only Canelo. How many fighters do you think Canelo has left in him? Well, he's had 64 fights now. I'd say he's going to have another, I reckon there's another 5 or 6 fights in him. No face boxing. Hey G-Man, think with the additional weight muscle, Canelo's strength will start to suffer beginning of the decline, but he's still streets ahead of most in his weight class. Hit the like, guys. Yeah, if you could, people. 51 is in the building. If you could hit the like button, I'd appreciate that. Yeah, I agree with you there. I don't think he needs to keep packing the muscle on. I see GG fight on as long as he fights Charlo, Lara. Erislandy Lara, I didn't think of that. Lara called him out many years ago. I mean, that's an interesting show, actually, Lara. But I think he's got a stake in the zone, hasn't he? So I don't know if they'd let him go to PBC. How much credit does Joyce get if he KOs Parker? Parker already lost to White and AJ, and arguably Ruiz and Chisora. No. I thought he won the Huey Fury fight, to be fair. I'd give him credit. I would. Stopping Joe Parker where those guys can't. Look, I'd give Joe Joyce massive credit for beating. And likewise, I'd give Parker credit for beating Joe Joyce. I think it's a great fight. I think it's a very good competitive fight. So I give both guys, whoever wins, massive props. Unless, of course, there's a controversial decision, in which case then we'll have something to talk about. But I give both guys massive credit, whoever wins. If the White fight doesn't happen, who does Dubois fight next? I've not really thought about that, to be honest with you, mate. For that simple reason that I've heard so much about him fighting Dylan White next, that I haven't really given too much thought to who they would put Dubois in there with. I really couldn't tell you, mate, to be honest with you. Really feels like Joe is the unsung number 3 at heavyweight, other than Fury and Usyk. Who do you see getting a surefire victory over him? Other than Fury Usyk. I don't know if I trust AJ now. I really don't know if I trust him. That's a good question. I could see how he could offset Deontay Wilder, but I don't know if he's quick enough to get out of the way of that right hand. And that right hand would hurt Joe. He could have a good chin. That right hand's knocking anyone out. Frank Sanchez, I'd pick him over Joe Joyce, to be honest with you. I think he'd outmove him. I think he'd just move. I think he'd be a nightmare for Joe Joyce. I'd pick Frank Sanchez over Joe Joyce. Would I pick Andy Ruiz? Pre-AJ, maybe. But now, I don't know if I would. And who else? I think I'd give Joe Joyce a good shot over most heavyweights, but Frank Sanchez and maybe Deontay Wilder, I'd be probably picking those two. Joe's style and lack of miles on the clock means he could stay for a little bit longer. Correct. Very few miles on the clock. What did you think of the Majimov in the Takam fight? Yeah, I didn't actually see that. And I knew about it, but I haven't actually got around to seeing it yet, so I can't really comment on that, mate. I want to see Joshua versus Fury on December 17th so they can have the weekend before Christmas vibes too. Yeah, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? Just the weekend before Christmas, we get AJ versus Joshua. It ain't going to happen, man. It's going to be early December, I think. I met Parker personally once. He is just as nice as he is on camera. He isn't a natural fighter. You see, that's the thing, right? There are fighters I've met who are lovely, lovely people, but they have that dog in them. Whereas Parker just seems to be what you see is what you get. He's just nice, always nice. But you need to have that bit of spite in you, that bit of fire in you. Because at the end of the day, boxing is kill or be killed. It is. There's no ways around it. It's kill or be killed. I think AJ has a decent chance of beating Fury. He will have a lot better chance of hitting him, just like Wilder did. And AJ has combinations that can finish Fury. I'd still pick Fury to win. Oh yeah, no, Joshua definitely, I think, he'd be game, certainly. But at this stage, I just think it's Fury. Good money to be made on GGG fight next fight against a live opponent will be a shame to see him go out in such a fashion. An all-time great that didn't get to show his true value in his prime. You know, what you say there is very interesting. Triple G in his prime was fighting David Lemieux. He was fighting Dominic Wade. He was fighting Gabriel Rosado, Daniel Gill. Imagine a prime triple. That's Triple G in his prime, and that's who he had to fight. That's all that was really around. But a prime Triple G would be interesting. Please out the druggie. No, I can't, man. I can't. I could get myself in a lot of shit for that. No way. Look at other sports. Nadal, Mo Farah, Messi didn't perform 100% every performance. Canelo fighting always top 3 in the division. He just comfortably beat Triple G Unified Champion, who beat the champion Japan. It's a very good point, actually. Messi, Farah, Djokovic, they've all had off days. That would be such an interesting fight. Like, again, Frank Sanchez is not... See, Frank Sanchez is a proper dark horse. He's a proper dark horse in there because he's talented, he's quick, he's got decent punching power, and he's a good mover, he's got stamina. He doesn't look like much, and he is a who needs you fighter. That's what Frank Sanchez is. He's a proper who needs you fight, who needs you, who needs him. Because you're not going to gain anything from beating him, really. The hardcores, people like me will give you massive props, but the casuals will be like, who's this Frank Sanchez guy? And he's very tricky and dangerous. Based on how the weekend went, how do you think GGG versus Andrade would have gone? I think GGG would have outboxed them. Yeah, I would have. As much as I rate Demetrius Andrade, I would have given Triple G that fight, but in a very close competitive fight, probably on points. I think Wilder, yeah, I do as well. I don't see him winning that fight. I feel Joe isn't that good. Not fought many good fighters. Nah, I think Joe Joyce is... I think he's good, man. G-Man. I thought Majimov almost looked as slow as Joe Joyce, really. Well, that's not good. I know Takam's been stopped before, earlier in his career. Hey, from Edinburgh. Never been to Edinburgh, but big up. I'd love to see Scotland sometime. Oh, mate. That's a good question. So apparently he's going to be out November 26th. They're not going to risk him. They are not going to risk him with Beterbiev next year. They're not going to do it. But the problem is that Tunde, when he gives Yard a run out, he gives him a run out against Mick the Bin Man. He doesn't give him a run out against even someone who's a bit durable, but not that good. He gives him a run out against, I carry your bags for you. No, you're going to get hit by him and then we're paying you. Yeah, perfect. That's who you get. That's who they get in for Anthony Yard. So, yeah, look, I'm not exactly expecting anybody decent, to be honest with you. Oh, Triple G every day. Oh, no, you're talking about now? I thought you meant prime. Probably still would edge Triple G, even now, to be fair. Who do you think How do you think Fury beats AJ? Does he outbox him and stay on the outside, or does he be aggressive and walk him down? I feel like he couldn't be as aggressive with AJ. You see, I would have agreed with you on that, but to be honest with you, the way AJ capitulated against Usyk after the fight and just had that breakdown, you might get away with it. If it was me, I'd start off on the back foot and just see what I can get away with. That'd be a boxing purists fight right there. That'd be a good fight. Like, that'd be a pure boxing purists. That'd be a boxing purist fight right there. For the IBO title. Oh, yes. We need the IBO to be recognized, don't we? We all want it so bad. That's a very good question. How good is Luis Ortiz, though, really? I know in 2016, I was victim of doing this as well. I thought that this man was up there, that this guy was feared. And he was feared in 2016 to an extent. That's a good question. Gun to my head, probably Joshua, slightly. Because we just don't know how good Luis Ortiz is. Yes, he beat Brian Jennings, but, like, no offense, and I like Brian Jennings. He's a great guy, but I don't rate Brian Jennings as, like, he was a good fighter, but he wasn't the kind of fighter you'd be thinking you'd expect someone at world level to beat Brian Jennings. You know what sort of way? I think Joyce and Parker have their chance to become top contenders after Luis Ortiz looked sloppy. Hrgovic wasn't great against Zhang, and Magomedov looked slow. Yeah, I mean, like, I think that once these guys, AJ, Fury, Usyk, retire, the heavyweight division is going to go into a bit of a slump. What do you think about Lou DiBella outbidding Eddie Hearn and pulling Buatsi and BT and Warren? Surely Hearn has to be fuming. He could lose a Coley and Buatsi to Warren. I think you need to look at it from a business point of view, mate. Look, at the end of the day, the Zone have been hemorrhaging money. They had to get bailed out by Blavatnik. And no disrespect to Joshua Buatsi or Lawrence Okoli, because you mentioned him as well. No disrespect to either guy. But they are not going to recoup. So if Eddie Hearn went and he outbid for that, and he bid for that fight, and he won it, and he put a lot of money up, he is not going to recoup that money. He is not recouping that money on the Zone for a Buatsi versus Pascal fight. So from a business point of view, I'm sure Eddie Hearn is looking and saying, look, it's nothing personal, but I can't be bidding extreme amounts of money for a fight that I'm not going to be able to recoup it with. So I can see why DiBella, Warren, and all that have gone and done that. And at the end of the day, it's a real kind of FU to Eddie Hearn. It's just kind of, I think as well as that, it's showing the fighters what it's like on the other side of the street, as Errol Spence would say. So that's really what I got to say about that. And could it possibly? Yeah, definitely. And there's a very, very good chance that could happen. They could like it over at BT Sport, Warren, and South. Stick around here. I've not looked at the undercard for Joyce, but in your opinion, how would you rate it? Let's have a look. See, I was going to talk about the undercard on midweek report, but we'll do it here. Why not? I can still do it on midweek report anyway. Box rec. I can still do it on midweek report. Who's on the undercard? Jojo is 37 years old. Jesus. So Michael Magzidi is how you pronounce it versus Anthony Kakache. Okay. Echo Usman, he's not the most entertaining to watch. You've got Amanda Serrano versus Sarah Morford. Okay, like watching Amanda Serrano, so I won't really mind that. Nathan Heaney versus Jack Flatley. Nathan Heaney, I don't trust his chin. I really don't. Raven Chapman, shout out to Raven. She's been on here before. Great girl. Jorge Guanini, that's going to be a good little test for her. Tommy Fletcher is a good little prospect. Look, it's not an amazing card for a pay-per-view, it has to be said. I would say that out of 10, that card is probably a 4, realistically. It's not a good undercard. It sucks there is full integral awareness of drug cheats, yet the dirt protects them. So presumably a big name, shame journalists are complicit in the nonsense. Well, you've never heard any journalist speak about what I talked about earlier. Yard turning down Buatsi for another undeserved title shot is so annoying. How many bin men can he fight and yet be rewarded for it while they're all over again? Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it? I mean, like, the WBO were so close with Warren that Yard can knock over these bin men, and he gets rewarded for it with world title shots. It's bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. Charles Martin versus Daniel Dubois. Oh, I'm taking Daniel Dubois, but I hope we don't get that fight. I don't remember the ins and outs. I don't think he refused to fight Klitschko, but I think there was a potential case of him fighting Klitschko. I remember that, but it never materialized. I think that was what it was. I remember briefly hearing about it. Thoughts on the Bridgerweight division? I don't really think about it, mate. I'm not really interested in it, to be honest with you. Yes, G-Man, who do you give Usyk Wilder to? Usyk, definitely. Point win. Any concerns that we still haven't? Yeah, definitely. Oh, no, mate. That's a big concern. A very big concern. I'm not really happy about that. What's going on with Lawrence Okolie? Are we going to see him out? Are we going to see him fighting again this year? I doubt it. I think he's done until next year. I doubt it. I really do. I think he's done till next year. How do you see Kambosos Haney 2 going? What can Kambosos do? Haney is hard to hit and always on his feet. Yeah, look, I do think there's ways in which he can improve, definitely. But I think that Devin Haney never really got out of third gear. Shout out to G-Man Boxing. Where's the piss bottle? It's over there. Best intro on YouTube, mate. I was uncomfortable. I couldn't do a video on it. It could ruin his career. Yeah, mate, you're lucky because you're not monetized, but I don't really want to talk about that if it's a monetization issue, because it could get the channel in trouble. And I don't go. I try and keep the political kind of things and what's going on in personal life out of it, unless it's something real serious that could affect their boxing career. Yeah, I can see him getting absolutely iced by Oscar Rivas. I think Hearn is letting Alan Babich and Wadley rot on the sidelines to force Dylan White to sign with him for his next fight and have Chisora. Could be, potentially. I mean, I wouldn't say that necessarily. And I'll tell you why. Because, give me 2 secs here, people. I'm just going to plug these in for 1 sec. Now, I think I'm going to have a guest on now in a wee bit, so I just make sure how that sounds, actually. Give me 2 secs. Yeah, sounds perfect. Yeah, no, I think I'm going to have a guest on in a wee bit, so I want to make sure that I have these plugged in so I can hear him. Big up to Joe Stunner Boxing, my guest from last week. Hello, G-Man. I thought the same about Canelo. He might be declining. Was very disappointed in Golovkin's performance. At times, he looked like he was there for a check and to survive the distance. It just seemed to me as though he was just like, give me my money and let me go home. I'm not going to get knocked out or stopped, but I ain't going to make a last stand. That's just not going to happen. Why is a topic of Canelo being on the decline? I'm asking the question, is he on the decline? Because some people feel that's the case. I think boxing has failed the fans on Crawford Spence. Even if it gets made, it should not have taken this long. Spence last fought in April, and this is much. Yeah, I mean, well, the car crash didn't help, but I see where you're coming from. It's people, for the last 15 or so minutes, I said I bring in a guest. I think we all know who this guest is, but yo, we'll put him in there. Yo, what's up, mate? How are you?
I'm all good, mate. Yourself?
Oh man, I'm real good. I haven't had a chat to catch up on any of the lives you did yet, but I seen you did a aftermatch show yesterday morning or afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? And I got 2 questions for you. 1, did you stay up for it? And 2, did you pay for it?
I did both. Yes, I did both.
Was it worth the 10 quid?
It wasn't worth it in terms of the entertainment. For me, it's just sometimes easier to do, just to have it on your TV rather than having to find a stream on your phone or your laptop or whatever. So part of it is just a bit of laziness from me. So I just end up doing it so it's easy to watch. But in terms of, Jesse Bam Rodriguez is a fighter that I have a lot of stock in, someone that I want to do well. So I thought, you know what, why not? Let's just pay it and sit back and watch it.
I want to ask you about him as well, but before we do that, Canelo Triple G, like Triple G for me, I think that should be
that, really. I just think
Hmm.
that the hunger just seemed gone by the end of the fight. For Canelo, he needs, in my opinion, a rest. He's starting to not look like he's on the decline per se, but I think that one of the issues with the stamina is that he is probably just overtraining himself now at this stage. Do you think he could be that?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that you don't necessarily think it's declining because everyone seems to be saying it is, and I don't think we necessarily know enough from the Golovkin fight to know whether he is declining or not. I think he definitely needs a break, like you said, because I mean, we
Mm,
think about that super middleweight run. Although it wasn't the most of elite of fighters he was facing, it was a lot of fighting and a lot of camps. We don't see regular world champions fighting that much in a 11-month period, let alone the guy at the time that's pound for pound number one. So I think he definitely needs a break. The thing for me that more than a decline is clearly his body is starting to notice injuries a little bit more. The broken hand,
mm.
even getting cut against Golovkin. Canelo's just seemed indestructible for the last couple of years. So seeing him cut, seeing him with a broken hand, he's been saying this is the first camp he's actually been able to do road work for a while because he's just been having injuries with his knees and stuff as well. So maybe the body's breaking down a little bit, which I think is fair to say.
He's had issues with those for a while now. I remember in 2018 he had the knee issue, and then he had hand issues before. For me, it's just a case of he's been fighting world champions for 12 years now. Because
Hmm.
2010 was when he fought Baldemir, and it's been consistently then on. And he's not one of these guys who just once a year, twice a year has a long rest, gains weight. He's just on it the whole time. The body can only take so much.
Yeah, and like you say, he's always made sure he's at least twice a year. Always at least
Hmm.
twice a year. And the last couple he's tried to make it more, obviously barring 2020, which was a weird year for everyone. But he's been very active and a lot of fights. He's been doing this since he was 15. He's been a pro for a very long time. So a bit of wear and tear now, I think, starting to show as you sort of enter the mid-30s.
You think that because he's gone from 154 all the way up to light heavy, and look, Canelo's a naturally big guy anyway, but he's obviously packed on a lot of muscle to get to that. Do you think that maybe that's having an effect that like his body just is not designed? It's designed to weigh, say, like 170 pounds normally, but not say 175 pounds packed full of muscle.
Yeah, at 175, he has to put weight on to compete at that weight, which is a bit of an issue. Mainly in terms of he already has cardio issues, but it's a problem if you're putting muscle on and
Mm.
taking it off and trying to work out your stamina for those fights. So, yeah, that up and down in weight thing, Roy Jones always says it can be a bit of a killer and take a couple of years off your career if you do it too frequently. So, yeah, and he may be doing it again, but I think he might try and get Bivol down to 168 to avoid that.
You could do a catch weight maybe, like a
Mm.
Canelo kind of 170 catch weight.
Well, Eddie seems to. He's always said for the last couple of years that Bivol could make 168 if he needs to, and Bivol seems to think he can. I mean, he's not a massive light heavyweight, so it wouldn't be too much of a surprise. But they're saying now because Canelo has undisputed, it gives Bivol a reason to come to 168, not just to beat
Mm.
Canelo again, but actually to fight for undisputed. So I think they're going to bring him down to 168 personally.
Do you remember when Chad Dawson did that against Andre
Mm.
Ward? And he wasn't this as soon as he went back up to light heavy, he wasn't the same. Got knocked out by Adonis Stevenson then. I think something like that, maybe Canelo was looking at it thinking, if I bring you down, drain you at 168. Bear in mind, Chad Dawson said I can make 168, so
Mm.
he didn't, that wasn't it, he willingly did it. Do you think something like that could happen to Bivol?
Yeah, absolutely. Like when Canelo was landing on Bivol in the first fight, you could just see it wasn't making a dent at all. If you maybe drain him a little bit and he becomes a little bit more sort of feeble physically, maybe those shots start to tell a little bit more. And it's just those fine margins because, like we've said on your channel before, on my channel, although we all saw a one-sided win for Bivol, the judges didn't, and it's going to be very fine margins that could turn it in Canelo's
Mm-hmm.
favour. So bringing him down to 168 might just be what he needs to not necessarily win the fight in all of our eyes, but in the eyes of the judges in Vegas. I mean, an extra 2 rounds wins him the fight, so is what it is.
Yeah, been a little. If he was a little busier in one of the rounds, he
Mm,
lost. He could have had a draw or a split decision win.
mm.
In terms of some of the other fights that were on the card, I wanted to see this. I was looking forward to this fight as well, and I actually was surprised how competitive it was. I shouldn't have been because I know how good Gonzalez is, but Jesse Bam Rodriguez versus Israel Gonzalez. Now, never mind the 118-109 scorecard, that was BS. But what did you think of that fight?
Yeah, it was a really entertaining fight. I think Bam was just a little bit too eager to impress. I said on my channel, I think he's kind of been due a less than spectacular performance because he's literally been perfect as a pro. He's not had a bad performance yet. So I think he was finally due one. It's just a real shame that it had to come on the night that was planned for him to become a star. You know, he's had the wins, but he's not necessarily had the focus and the spotlight on him. So this was supposed to be that night. He's just a bit too eager to impress. And I thought Robert Garcia perhaps played a part in this, that I think they just assumed Bam's best is too good for Gonzalez's best, so we'll just go in and do that. I don't think they actually went in with a game plan. They just went in on ability alone, because if they'd have looked at, you know, some of his previous fights, Gonzalez, you look at the Eubank-Benn fight, which is his only southpaw defeat. I mean, he had trouble all night long trying to press Ancajas, and Ancajas was just picking him off with the left hand, dropped him 3 times. You know, we didn't see any of that from Rodriguez. It was all aggression, and he's actually quite good on the back foot. So I don't think they prepared necessarily the best for it, but I do think Bam's put in a lot of work this year. They're talking about him fighting a 4th time. I think just have a little bit of a break now, celebrate what you've done, reflect on it, you know, look back and see why you were so successful and the things you did well, and then go again in February or March time.
You think they kind of maybe took Gonzalez for granted a bit, because like he's not been a world champion like Quadras and Rumfasai, but he should be. Like, he got robbed against Yafai, and he probably still has a little bit more in the tank than those 2 guys.
Yeah, it just, to me, like you say, they underestimated him, but it was more so just no game plan for me. It was just like, okay, Bam's the better fighter here, and if Bam's at his best, he'll win. I don't think they really planned of how they were going to break down Gonzalez and you know, what rounds they were going to turn it up in, and you know, how they were going to defend to the body, because Bam got hit a lot to the body. There were signs of frustration there as well. I just think they lacked a bit of a game plan and just assumed, well, because Bam's more talented, even if he's not quite his best, he'll win anyway. So,
you think for 2023 we're going to see him versus the winner of Estrada Chocolatito? I hope we do.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Regardless of what happens in that fight, I think they'll fight Estrada next. Just from listening to what Robert Garcia has been saying, Chocolatito doesn't really care about the Tekken relationship, that they're both managed by Tekken. He just wants to fight everyone, and he wants to fight Bam. But that's not really been reciprocated in Bam and Rodriguez and Robert Garcia. They came out on fight week, and Robert Garcia said, we'll probably target Estrada, whether it's a win or a loss for him. And we're going to try and put Joshua Franco in for Chocolatito. I think they want to marinate Chocolatito a little bit to a point where they definitely know he's not the same fighter, because at the minute, all signs are pointing towards there's still too much there for anyone at super flyweight. So I think they're going to let Chocolatito brew. I'd be surprised if the earliest I could see that fight would be next December. I really do think they're going to let it brew a little while longer.
I agree, and it's what you said there about Chocolatito. It's great. Like 2017, I thought that was the end of him, and now we're probably still talking to him as the best in the division still, and the division's not really changed. That just shows how talented and how good he really is. When he retires, it's going to be a sad day.
Yeah, he's my favourite fighter of all time, so I'll be gutted when he retires. But I still think 2 or 3 years, I think, left at the top level. I think there unfortunately will be another Rungvisai night where he just looks old and probably gets knocked out or gets hurt. But, you know, a little bit like Donaire a few months ago against Inoue, he'll just come up against someone that's just a little bit too fresh for him. But for the meantime, I think if you're willing to try and put yourself in with Chocolatito, you need to do it at your own risk, because Eddie thought it was a good idea for Yafai. He thought it was a good idea for Martinez, and both backfired. So
both backfired spectacularly, mate. And in terms of the fights we have this week, I know you done a prediction video. I haven't seen it yet on Joyce versus Parker. I'm not obviously going to get you to spoil that, but in terms of this fight in the whole, are you looking forward to? And we just read it. I read the undercard earlier, and it's not jaw dropping. It's got some okay fights on it, but what are your thoughts on this and the whole event? And I'd say they're breathing a sigh of relief that Lara Wood isn't happening now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a massive boost for them, because I'll be honest, I think pretty much everyone I spoke to said they're going to tune into Wood Lara instead. I don't know whether that'd be the same if this wasn't a pay-per-view card on BT, but I think most people just genuinely more interested in that fight. So it's an interesting one. I don't want to complain about it too much, because it's 2 top 10 heavyweights facing each other. Both of them probably could have waited around for a title shot or another big fight that makes them a little bit more money, but they decided to face each other. So all of that I'm happy with. And if it does gel, it will probably be a good fight. I just think there's too many signs from both of them that it probably won't gel. Joseph Parker in terms of no killer instinct, and everyone seems to feel like he showed in the Chisora rematch that he can be a bit of a killer, but no, he stood off and just didn't take any risk when he actually had Chisora hurt. And for Joyce, it's not so much that he's involved in boring fights, it's just that sometimes he's a little bit hard to watch. He's not the flashiest fighter, he's not the most, pretty on the eye fighter. It can sometimes be a little bit difficult. And if that is the case against someone like Parker, who's perhaps been a bit negative, it could go really badly. So I'll just wait and see. I think it's a good fight to make, but just whether it will actually deliver, big question marks over that for me.
I have nightmares of that Junior Fa fight still that Parker had, that they sold as like this big event for New Zealand. And I just think, I know Joyce be a bit more aggressive, but I could see something like that happening where it's literally just pitter-patter punches from both guys, and just the rounds are just like that. I'm hoping I'm wrong and that doesn't happen, but I can see a situation where that does. I don't know. I think that I have a prediction where it's going to go out tomorrow myself, but I can see ways in which, now this is saying Parker has a bit of killer instinct in him, but I'm questioning that. But if he did, I can see ways that he could turn this fight into a real exciting fight. But my question is he going to have the aggression? Because someone earlier in the chat before you joined commented and said they met Parker in real life, and they said that even to meet him in real life, he just has such a nice person, but he carries that demeanor into the ring. There's no kind of switch where he can just turn it on and be like, nice person's gone, business. It's just constantly nice.
Yeah, even in the face-offs and stuff, when he tries to trash talk, there's no spite or malice in anything he says. You can tell he's just trying to say it almost for comedic effect, because there's just not that side to him. It's not a bad thing, he is a really nice guy, but it's ultimately resulted in him sort of flattering to deceive in a lot of his fights. He's left a lot on the table in fights that he could have ended a couple of rounds early. I mean, how Derek Chisora went 12 rounds in that second fight, and people would sit there and tell you Chisora's tough, Del Boy, it's Del Boy. Well, no, Parker had every opportunity to get rid of him, but just didn't want to take the risk, because Chisora put his back into the rope and just waited to land a big shot. Now you can find ways around that.
100%. Do you remember Joe Parker early in his career when he was fighting a couple of knockovers? At the time, he was going through them and he was looking a bit devastating. Do you think that was just a mirage, or do you think something happened to him along the way which just made him really cautious? I think the Takam fight is an example where after that he seemed to just be way more cautious, because I know he gassed a bit in that fight and it was tough, but he came through it. Do you think something like that's happened to him? He's never fully got over it.
Yeah, I think it's a gas tank issue, like you said, where he gasses out a little bit. I think he's scared of that happening again, because you see it in every fight with Parker. He has to have one or two or 1, 2, 3 rounds off, because he just can't consistently do it over the distance. So, like you said, I think it's more a case of, actually, if I don't get rid of him here, I'm gonna be like, running low on fuel, and they could get me out. So I think it's more a case of that rather than I don't want to knock this person out. It's not in me. I think the urge is there, but there's a little voice sort of holding him back, saying, "No, think about your gas tank here, mate, because you could run out of juice."
But it's also, I don't like seeing him when he gets to the end. If he's won or lost, he's just happy. Sort of way. When do you ever see a fighter lose a close fight and just say, "Wow, this is great, isn't it?" I think that's what he said after he lost Dylan White. He was like, "Wow, this is great." I was like, "Mate, you just lost a close fight. You shouldn't be fucking happy."
Yeah. And it literally, like, if he'd have put his foot on the gas a little bit earlier, he would have won that fight as well. But he didn't seem like he was particularly he wasn't kicking himself that he lost it. It was just like, yeah, great fight. Fans enjoyed it, whatever.
Oh, mate. Do you have any interest for the DAZN card in itself? Like, is there anything on that card that remotely interests you? I know Hughes versus Kid Galahad. I like Maxi Hughes. He's a great guy. But that just doesn't interest me. I could just see that fight being a real stinker.
Yeah, I really like Maxi Hughes. I think Kid Galahad's much more talented. It's just questions over what he's got left. The years of making featherweight has taken a lot out of him. The knockout would have taken a bit out of him, but just skill for skill, he's the much better fighter. And it's not like he's getting in with a power punching lightweight that's a natural 135. Maxi Hughes has come up from 130 and only really moved up to 135 through opportunities, not because he needed to move up in weight. So it's just one of those fights that on paper again, a bit like Joyce Parker, not a bad matchup. You put their names next to each other and you're like, that's okay that you're putting them two in the ring together. But you're just not thinking of the end product because it's going to be a horrendous fight. Maxi Hughes at the best of times isn't entertaining. Kid Galahad has very, very rarely been entertaining. Putting them in together, it's just not going to click for me. So I think Harper versus Rankin's probably the one that I'll pay a little bit more of an interest in.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Hannah Rankin is massive compared to Terry Harper, but in terms of skill versus skill, Harper, there's no question, has the more skill.
It's an interesting one. It's kind of my first thoughts when they were talking about it was why. I didn't really see the point of it. I know there's a bit of a backlog at 135 with Katie Taylor holding the belts, and ultimately I think Terry Harper's a little bit way off being a viable opponent for someone like Katie Taylor as well. It's not like she can just jump straight back into that sort of fight. The one thing for Terry Harper, like you say, is she's much more skilled, but I don't know if you've seen the pictures of her in training, but she looks bulky. She looks like she's put on a lot of muscle to move up. And if she's busy and she's active and she's having to throw a lot of punches, it might tire her out a little bit. It's something I think is a bit of a cause concern against someone like Rankin that will just hold the weight a bit more naturally. But like you say, skill for skill, Harper's much more skilled.
I'm hoping Hannah Rankin wins. That's all.
Yeah, me too. She's one of the good people in boxing.
She's a genuine. I've had her on here. She's a great girl. She's very, very nice, and you just want to see her get that moment because I think she knows she's being brought in there to just kind of, here's your title, Terry, and I think we'd all like to see her get the job done. Nothing else on that card really that you're interested in?
No, it's both undercards really this week. I know Raven Chapman versus Gwynny is quite an interesting fight because Gwynny's given absolutely everybody problems. I mean, very close to beating Ellie Scottney, who I would have down as just a little bit more skilled than Raven Chapman. So it's an interesting fight. Gwynny's one of those that you don't want to put a bet on because you know she's not going to get the decision, but you do think she's probably going to win the fight. So, yeah, she's going to bring...
Coming off the back of a win over Stevie Levy.
No, I mean, she battered her as well.
But still, she battered her under the post. I mean, I remember when I seen that fight get announced, I was like, typical flipping Dave Allen.
Yeah, I think me and you were texting each other.
To get beat.
Yeah.
I was like, Dave Allen in a nutshell. Yeah, she's ready for her. Oh yeah, she lost. All right. Oh.
Yeah.
Sad face.
It's all right. She'll make people laugh, is what he said. Oh, she's a great personality. Yeah, no one cares.
Yeah, literally doesn't give it. You know what? But are you doing an aftermath? Last question. You doing an aftermath for either of these cards?
I hadn't even thought about it. Yeah, I probably will for Parker versus Joyce. I probably will.
Controversy, mate. Pray for a controversial fight.
When you check out my prediction video, you hear that I think a draw is totally feasible in this one, just because I think it's one of those fights where you can see one man dominating the first half, IG, Parker probably, and then the second half, Joyce coming on strong. It's one of those fights where I think there's going to be a lot of rounds where if it becomes negative, the judges are just it's going to be scores all over the place potentially. So,
but I just think that this being on BT and Parker being a Ben Shalom guy, Frankie boy, bit more sway nowadays. I could see them just kind of, there you go, Joe. Because people talk about her and look at some of the cards that Frank Warren fighters have had. Even in like Joyce versus Dubois, Dubois was the guy and he had him miles ahead. He was losing that fight.
Even Anthony Yard versus Lyndon Arthur, Ian John Lewis's scorecard, I think he had 117, 111 for Yard on that one. I mean, it goes back quite a long time, I think back to when Billy Joe Saunders fought John Ryder. I remember some of the scorecards on that being really wide, and Billy Joe won the fight, but John Ryder made that really close that night. And I remember scorecards, it was just like, yeah, you can tell who the home guy is here. And I think I'm right in saying that the rematch clause for this is only in effect if Parker wins. If Parker wins, then there's a rematch clause on Sky, apparently. So, I mean, that could play a massive factor in this, because if Joyce then goes and wins, he doesn't have to obligate that rematch. Parker wins, then there's a rematch on Sky, and so anything close, I think, lands with Joyce.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that. I suppose Sky will be thinking, great, we have a pay-per-view fight because we have very little. The last thing I say before we finish up here, right? I haven't heard you really talk much about this. In fact, I think you might have touched it on a live stream or two, but Eubank-Benn, what's the deal? Anything?
No, I think Chris Eubank Senior is just, and do you know what? It's hard because the comments he actually made were quite harrowing comments about losing one son, don't want to lose another. I mean, that's not Eubank just
He's
saying I'm
not
going
going
to
to
pull him
say
for the
that.
fight.
He's
I
not going to
think
say
there's
that unless
genuine
he means it.
concern. But I think this time Junior's got a little bit more power to actually just go ahead and manage his own career. I think in the past, I think Senior's decision has actually stood. It's been the final decision, whereas I think now Junior is his own man. Senior's, having his say on it. But I think the fight's happening. But the undercard, I mean, where's the announcement for that? You can't tell me you care about the undercard and the value you're putting on for the fans if you're leaving it this late to build it, because, I mean, it's becoming a bit of a joke now. So.
Yeah, Ellie Scottney versus, I think, is it Mary Romero, is the only fight that's been announced currently, and that's it. So it tells me, but here's the proper thing I touched on. Eddie Hearn has let a lot of Lerone Richards, Thomas Coley, Felix Cash, Liam Smith. They're card fillers, mate. They might not be world beaters, they're card fillers, and now he doesn't have them.
Yeah, and at the end of October, he's doing another show in London. Apparently, Katie Taylor's going to be the headline. I mean, he's going to be put. I don't know. Johnny Fisher's said Fright Night, which means he'll be fighting on that card then because it's near Halloween. I mean, he's the perfect person that you kind of just fill a card with usually to sell tickets. But those sorts of names, I mean, the local ticket sellers for London, because this is sold out, you don't need them guys. So they'll be going on the card at the end of the month, which leaves this undercard even weaker. So it's just like, I mean, to be honest, I know there's talk of like your 5 featuring on there potentially, but God knows what's going to happen.
It's crazy. It's crazy. All I know is that I'm curious to see this fight now, but the undercard for pay-per-view, we are going to be having. So I'd say when they do announce it, we are going to be no short of videos saying, "What the hell? Game changed." Yeah, it's changed. You actually made it worse. I don't know how you managed to do that, but you did it.
Yeah, facts.
You had a car with 4 wheels, and now it's got 2, but you expect to still drive.
Yeah, exactly that.
Mate, appreciate you coming on. I know it was kind of a short notice gig, but people, thanks for coming on, mate. I'm going to end this here. You can stay on for a little bit if you want after, just have a catch up.
Sounds good.
For now, people, I'll leave you with that. Smash the like button on the way out. Punch Perfect Boxing. I don't even need to give you an intro, but I'll do it anyway. Jamie, Punch Perfect Boxing. I've got a goal of 10K by the end of the year. You've got 5K. We're both close to hitting it. Let's go. Punch Perfect. If you haven't already, give him a like and subscribe. Peace, people.